What's the worst thing you unknowingly did as a child? When I was about 8 I asked my dad if we could play the naked man game. My dad, trying not to panic, asked me what it was. I responded it's the one we play when the babysitter is over. He then asked me to show him where the naked man game was, so I took him to the closet, opened the door, and pointed up to operation. He told me years later that he nearly had a heart attack. I used to spend several weeks out of every summer staying with my aunt and uncle. I got to play with my cousin, and presumably my single father got to take a break. One year, on the day I was due to come home, I called and asked permission to stay another week, and he agreed. After I went home, a family friend told me they had been at my house the week before for my surprise welcome home party. Dad bought a cake, decorated, and baked. This was a man who did not entertain or demonstrate affection. True to character, he never told me about the party he attempted. Not me, but my sister. She used the garden hose to put gas in Mama's car. I don't know if it's the worst, but I ruined my parents' romantic anniversary. I was around 7, and I woke up in the middle of the night because my stomach didn't feel well. So I went upstairs to tell my parents. When I opened their door I remember there were candles, music playing, and when my mom saw me, she immediately pulled a blanket around herself. She asked me what I was doing up, and before I could even finish my sentence I projectile vomited all over everything. As a young little shithead my favorite prank was to lock bathroom stall doors and then crawl underneath them and exit the scene. One time, my parents dragged me to Costco with them. I went to the biggest stall in the back of the bathroom, locked that and scampered away with a grin. I ended up going back to the same Costco the next day because my parents had to return something. I went to the same stall and it was still locked. This time I actually had to take a shit. I crawled under the door only come face to face with an old guy looking at me like I was from another planet. I recoiled away so hard that I smacked my head on the bottom of the door and ran from that bathroom like I'd never run in my life. I crack myself up whenever I try to imagine what that guy was thinking when a 9-year-old tried to hijack his toilet. Probably not the worst, but the one I can think of off the top of my head. I live within a half hour of the US/Canada border, Canadian side, and back in the 80s and 90s and earlier a lot of people would go over to the States to buy gas, beer, milk, etc. It was pretty much a Sunday tradition for us. One time when I was maybe 6 or 7 we were over there for the usual load of junk food etc, and my parents bought me a cap gun. Coming back across the border the agents ask the usual questions about where we were, what we are bringing back. Dad lists off everything, except probably a lot of beer and tobacco, because smuggling that stuff was super easy back then. And when he finished I pipe up in the backseat and say and a gun, somewhat proud of my new toy. Well, turns out that's a surefire way to get your car searched and your dad busted for smuggling beer. Who'd have known? My mom had severe depression, and I wrote her a poem for Mother's Day when I was 8 that had lines like I love you, even though you cry all the time. I was really proud because I thought it really showed how much I care, and I read it aloud to her. I didn't get the reaction I was expecting. I had a lot of medical issues as a child, and so we had a massive drawer full of my prescription meds. When I was 9 years old, a friend from school came over to my house. We played for a while before she told me that she had a stomach ache. I, knowing just how to help, gave her some of my medicine for a similar issue. She got pretty sick, and I got a really long lecture about how we do not give our medications to other people. I still feel bad about that one. One time I put a penny in my parents' car's cigarette lighter socket. It was the 80s so lighter sockets were all over the car, including the doors and the backseat. It completely drained the battery within a few hours, and it took the guy at the garage a few days to figure out what was wrong with the electrical system. Once when I was about 4, I sprayed a man driving by my house on his motorcycle with a water hose. I have no idea why I did it. I just remember that I was playing with the hose and he kept riding by over and over, and I just had an impulse and went with it. He didn't come by again after that, obviously. Accidentally pitchforked my neighbor in the head when I was about 7. I was helping her, in her 70s, do some gardening, planting flower beds etc., and we were just finishing up. I, in all my 7-year-old bravado, heft the pitchfork over my back to go and put it away and accidentally catch her in the back of the head with it. She ended up going to the hospital needing stitches, but she forgave me. I chopped my sister's finger off in the bedroom door. My mum told me you always shut it, so my sister couldn't get in the room. So I did. Unfortunately her finger was in the way, and it chopped the top of her pinky finger off all the way to the first knuckle bit. It was pretty gory. When my cousin and I were 5 to 6, we got hooked on this amazing hot chocolate at this hotel. The hotel had a bar in the middle of the pool, so you can drink it while you're sitting in the water, which made it even cooler. Our parents told us we couldn't have more, so we went to a random couple and asked them to buy us the hot chocolate. They did, and they babysat us until our parents found us. A few hours later, we didn't say anything about the hot chocolate since we didn't want to get in trouble, so the couple never got paid back. Looking back, I think they were probably some honeymooning couple and we forced them to babysit our 2 bratty kids. TL. Probably convinced a couple never to have kids. I was at a birthday party, age 7. And there was this orange air freshener that smelled so good, so I sprayed it all over myself, and then I smelled really good, so all the kids started spraying it on themselves. Not 20 minutes later, all of us are crying and screaming because our skin is burning and turning red. There was something very irritating in the air freshener. I called out my 2 cousins, who were brother and sister, for being girlfriend and boyfriend because I saw them kissing and touching each other. Caused us to miss a few family holidays as things blew over. I was about 7 when I made an enemy of my next door neighbor. I still don't see it as my fault that he had side chicks and side children, and I didn't understand shit about that. When one of his assorted children came to play, I was like I was playing with your brother the other week. What brother? Oh, you know, the one your dad has with that other lady. Book smart street dumb, was me. I had a habit of storing entire phone conversations between my mother and her mother in my head. I was little, and she'd just talk in front of me and assume I wasn't listening. Now to be fair, I was very little, okay? Well, I heard her laughing about how she had a crush on her cow walker and grabbed their. I guess it was an ongoing joke. Looking back at it, my dad would play with our basset hound by kind of grabbing his thigh, and he'd reach around to grab my dad's hand, and then my dad would grab the other side, etc etc. So I was watching him do this and laughing, and then that's like what mom did to Jason. Ooh. My ears are still ringing. Eek. Now both my parents were assholes to each other, rampant infidelity, the works. And they're both assholes to everyone now that they're divorced, so I don't feel as bad, but still. I messed up 2 computer monitors back in after school daycare in kindergarten. There were these magnet toys that were laying around, and for some reason I had put it up to the monitor and thought it was so cool how they made rainbow colors on the monitor. Me and a friend continued to do it until we both got yelled at, and that's all I can remember. I don't remember what happened after that, but I'm pretty sure they stopped putting out the magnets. According to my mom, I stole a ton of things from Best Buy and got away with it because I was a tiny toddler who couldn't reach the detectors. When I was little, I overheard my mom saying how my aunt chewed with her mouth open. Sometime later, my aunt is in the car with my mom, myself and my sister, and I proudly yell out how my mom says she chews with her mouth open. It was terribly awkward, and I'm glad I can only remember fragments of it. Another time I came home from school crying, and in front of my mother and grandmother told my mom how at school everyone else has a great grandmother, but I have a mean one. Didn't understand the concept, and we laugh about it constantly now. When we were both 8, I gave my cousin a corncob pipe I found in a drawer in the garage, and he put lawn clippings in it and smoked it, and had to be rushed to the hospital. Apparently my aunt and uncle had just chemically treated the lawn, and he smoked a whole bunch of nasty pesticides and herbicides. I tripped a waitress carrying dishes by leaving a crayon on the ground, but my dad may have been lying to teach me a lesson about not leaving crayons on the ground in a restaurant. I was 5 and my brother was 8. I showed him where our mom was keeping the Christmas presents and told him it was okay to look. I promptly ran out and told on him. for what he tells me. The worst part was that my mom just tossed him this toy he wanted after she yelled at him. Was about 3 to 4 years old walking with my family at a massively busy mall, saw a little person, and yelled out loud to my mom, thinking it was harmless. "Look mommy, a midget." Needless to say, my family was more than a little embarrassed. Backstory: I got a really bad burn on my arm while my dad was taking tea out of the microwave. I thought it would be really funny to slam the door on him while he was grabbing it. The result was a huge and bad burn on my arm. Cut to a while later, my arm was almost healed, but you could still see the burn in spots. I hit my head on a table and cut it open. My mom brings me to the hospital to get stitches. Right when they are done stitching my head, I say have this conversation with the doctor. Me: "Oh, my other owie is almost gone." Doctor: "What other owie?" Me: "From when my daddy poured hot tea on me." That resulted in a very awkward conversation between my mother and the doctor, and the doctor almost calling CPS. The first day I moved into my new house at 6 years old, I was meeting the new neighbor boy who was a couple years older than me. We were out in his driveway talking about some stuff when his mom walked out, and, for whatever reason, I instinctively smacked her ass as she walked by. My parents still bring up how embarrassing that was for her to come over and tell them what happened. Not me, but my brother, 20 years older than me, as a kid was house sitting for someone when he was like 7. Taking care of the dogs, cats, fish and a hamster or two. He spilled something on a hamster, Kool-Aid I think, and he gave it a bath, then tried to dry it off in the microwave so the family wouldn't know. To his credit, the hamster was dry. I put a canned Miller Lite in my Pikachu lunchbox in the 2nd grade because I wanted to be the cool kid at the lunch table and impress my friends. Unfortunately, my mom saw how shady I was acting protecting my lunchbox and ended up opening it. She was livid. Till this day, she still brings it up. It's basically the go-to story when I bring someone new to the house.